Okay, so welcome everybody. Today is our first session of the year. I'm excited for you all to join us for the seminar. And we have a lot of content going, so I'm just going to make this really brief. I want to present to you Naika, who's a sustainable designer and founder of the eco-friendly fashion brand Jacques Louis, which focuses on creating innovative clothing for consumers using natural fibers, dead stock fabrics, our rPET materials, and recycled textiles. She's a part-time professor at Parsons School of Design and sustainability director at a retail merchandising company. Welcome, Naika. I'm really excited to have you join us. I'm going to go ahead and just give you the stage. As people start coming in, we'll let them in, and we'll have time to have questions at the end, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So this week, we're going to go into the intro of design strategy for fashion designers. And then once I'll go over the table of content, and then I'll go do a little brief intro to myself outside of what Ganeda just did. So we're going to go into the intro of design thinking. What does that mean? And how do fashion designers, or how can they actually use that in fashion design outside of UX design? And then the 4 phases of design, or 4 phases of design thinking, which would help you as a fashion designer create a strategy or a plan. So regardless of if you're a fashion designer currently, or if you plan to go into that space fully and start your business, this would be great. Different design principles. We will go over or review the business model canvas. Then we'll go into marketing, branding, customer service models. And that's where we'll look at the value chain analysis that most brands and major brands use today. And then we'll go into identifying customer needs and consumer insights. And that is using, today we'll specifically use a Trendalytics, but we can go into your Google Analytics and all of that, and then prototyping and iteration of products. So that would kind of feed off of your Trendalytics and consumer insights. So a little bit more about myself. I am a self-taught fashion designer, so I didn't go to fashion design school. I have a background in bio and chemistry and marine bio undergrad, and then I started to blog, and then I taught myself to sew outside of taking a few classes at FIT. And then I learned the business side of fashion, or just design, after that. So many years, when I was 30 is actually when I went to design or business school, and that was at Pratt. And that's when I learned design strategy, which really helped me to leverage different points within my business. And so what is design thinking? So design thinking is a strategy that is used, and it's a way of a shift. And so we were just saying that prior to you all getting on the call. It's a shift in your mindset, and it's more of thinking of strategizing, looking at different systems to understand that all systems interact. So when I say systems, I'm saying different parts of your organization. So different parts of a supply chain, whether it's logistics, inbound logistics, outbound logistics, or HR, how that affects your your customer service, or your infrastructure. How does that affect your manufacturing process? So that's all connected. Or outside of that, when you're thinking of sustainability, you think of systems as what are systems that are currently active, and how does that prevent you from, creating leverage or differentiating yourself within an industry? Or you think of systemic racism, or you think of, so all of these affect fashion, which is why so many brands are now in this space of saying, we're going to tackle diversity, equity, inclusion, because we know that automatically affects the fashion industry. And so design thinking is understanding the critical design skills needed to either improve an existing product or service, or design a new one. And so design thinking is all about agile, where you're asking questions on the agile structure, you're asking questions and you're asking yourselves, Why? So why does this design work? Why does this fabric work? Why is this better than my competitor? What do my consumers need? What do they need to hear and understand? And so in today's world, a lot of designers are using design thinking because they want to include empathy in the way that they're designing products and services. And as the world is changing and we're going into a space of being more awakened and sustainability, design thinking, it's a framework that allows designers to go into that space of empathy and to create devise a plan in order to succeed in the fashion industry. So this is the framework that usually UX designers, and I use this often, and most designers use it. So it's the 4 Ds, I call it the 4 Ds. It's discover, define, develop, and deliver. And so as a fashion designer, or if you're a UX designer, the discover process would be the first process within as a fashion designer. So this is before you're getting your materials. You're just asking yourselves questions. So questionnaires, for UX designers, questionnaires would be sent to prospective consumers, and then those consumers would complete questionnaires regarding a product or service or a need within an industry. And then also doing interviews. Interviews can look like focus groups where you have an idea for a product or service. You may have a small space and you're inviting 5 people in to come and interview them and ask them questions. You're doing a lot of user observations. So you're saying to yourself, so if I have a product or a service like this iPhone, I'm looking to see what's trending in the industry. What do users need? Why did iPhone come out with an iPhone 14? That's because consumers were asking for different iterations of maybe apps or applications. They had different needs when it came to maybe iTag, or they needed their MacBook to now sync with their iPhone. So these are all ways that different organizations are using design thinking so that they can go into create new iterations or new products. So they're creating the iPhone 13, 14, 15, which apparently will never happen, but this is how they go about the process. And it's all about doing research. And oftentimes I use this for everything. So I use design thinking framework for fashion design. I've used it for creating a project that I did in Tanzania for women in coffee. I use it at work full time. So this is where I start, and then I eventually go down. So the define phase is now where you are looking to identify themes. And themes, it's more themes within consumer insights, themes within your questionnaires or your interviews that you've done. And then you're looking at insights. So insights is basically, it's driven, or it's information that's taken from data. And then it's a conclusion or a summary of this data. So insights would be something like in 2020, there were 2,000 deaths a year. That it was way more, we know this, right? But you're saying to yourself that we have this number, and that means that people are dying at this rate because of this after you've actually found this data. And then you're saying to yourself, opportunities. So oftentimes what organizations will do or designers will do is they will do a SWOT analysis. That's where you do your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and your threats. And these are little things that I would use as a fashion designer. And fashion designers are using this now. Why? Because you're never the best. You're never the best. There's always someone else that's coming out. There's always, yes, your competitors maybe you're on the same level as them. They're a direct competitor. But you have to continuously understand where are opportunities and ask yourselves these questions of why. So your opportunities would come from insights. So you would say to yourself, there's a white paper, and I'll go into white papers later, but there was a white paper published in 2021, in the beginning of 2021 by Highsnobiety, and they did all this research in 2020. And what they saw was that consumers were actually, now we know, consumers wanted loungewear. That's all they wanted, loungewear. And that's from those insights, the fashion designers realized that there were opportunities. So it wasn't just that fashion designers were going on blogs to see more people are actually wearing loungewear. They went in to see different types of data. they went in to see, okay, so their consumers like more nudes. Consumers want pieces that they can go into the office, work from home, leave, hang out with their friends. And then you'll do a synthesis, and that's before you start to develop your design. So as a fashion designer, you're doing all of this first before you start to develop this process of your piece. So in the development stage, which as fashion designers, we all know that's that phase, right? So we're brainstorming, possibly looking to see what's trending for spring, summer 23 and fall, winter 23. And then we're going into 24. And then we start the design process. And so design, the word design just means you're planning, you're creating a strategy, and you're going into the placement of planning. So everyone's a designer, right? And I know I say this, but often everyone's like, no, not everyone's a designer. If you're in this place of ideation, experimenting, creating, using insights and devising a plan, you're a designer mentally, because fashion design is just one part of design. Then you're experimenting. So as a fashion designer, what I do often, and what we'll do when we talk about manufacturing and production, I do experiment with different fabrics, and I know all of us do on this call. So I'll go and get so many different swatches, right? And if you go on swatchon.com, as a new user, if you have an LLC, they will give you about 100 free swatch packets, and you can go on, and that's when you can experiment with different types of swatches for free. They will mail it out to you for free. And then experimenting would be something like creating a prototype. Your sample would be your prototype, and then you're using that sample and you're placing that, experimenting it on your fit models. So how does it fit? Should I add an inch here? Is it too short? Should I make it tall, regular? So should I add a waistband? So these are all parts of your experimenting. After you've sketched and after you've created patterns, you still go back in and you'll experiment some more. And then lastly, you'll go into ideation, where you'll actually develop this entire piece. So now you're finishing that piece. And then you're going into your deliver phase. In your deliver phase, I always like to plop in questionnaires and focus groups when you're delivering your product or service. So what does that look like? That looks like private fit sessions with your friends. That looks like I created a collection of 12 pieces, and I'm inviting my friends over my apartment, and they're looking at the materials, they're pulling at the materials. I have a fit model. Maybe they're trying on the pieces, and you have pieces specifically, samples that are sizes for your friends. And then you're building on that idea and saying, you know, maybe if there's a friend of yours that is a size 4, you're saying to yourself, okay, she's a size 4, but she's 5'9". I have to increase, you know, maybe I'm adding 2 inches at the bottom. The skinny leg doesn't work for her, so I'm going to actually widen the leg. So now it'll go into from skinny to wide leg. And you're always finalizing pieces. And that's when you would finalize, I would say, after you've built on that, you've gotten all of the insights from the fitting, and then you're releasing. So in all of this, you're doing things like your release would be, you're releasing the product, the collection, marketing would go here. Marketing would start to go here, but it would really go in this development phase where you've designed your product, and you actually have a tangible product, or you're conscious of what's to come. And then implementation would be you're delivering this from your space, your manufacturing, your facility to your consumer. And those are the 4 phases of design. So what does that look like for fashion textiles? Do I have that here? Oh, I think I'm missing that. Okay, so I'll just go into the phases again. The 4 phases that I say, the 4 phases, this is like 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 phases, it helps, the first 2 phases helps you to understand, because now you're empathizing, you're doing research, and you're developing an understanding of your potential users, right? In this phase also, I would say, in this phase, your define phase, I would say to add in empathy maps. So empathy maps, I will show you what they look like, but Empathy maps will help you understand your consumer. And these frameworks are, you're just plugging certain things in. So empathy maps would say, an empathy map would look like an image of maybe your consumer. And then Tiffany Battle, I love her. She's amazing. I love her style. She's an influencer. Or you would do a Kalana Barfield and say, okay, I want Kalana Barfield to wear my clothing. And you would say that she's possibly 30 years old. She lives, I'm not sure if she lives in New York City. This is her lifestyle. This is what she's looking for. She wants pieces to go out for brunch. She wants pieces for work, 9 to 5. She works in marketing. She works in office. So you're taking all of this into account. Okay, if she works in office, then she wears lounge wear. There not many pieces. She doesn't really need that much. If anything, she would need 1 piece per week, right? Or 2 pieces per week on the weekend. So is that your target customer? Possibly not, because you would have to shift your collection from being loungewear, if this is your target customer, to being pieces that someone like a Kalana Barfield would wear, and actually have one of her pieces on. And then this phase here is you're exploring. So you're ideating, you're prototyping, you're having your fit models come in, you're saying to yourself, okay, these are ideas that we have for fabrics, and then this is exactly what we're going to use. Again, this is the difference between the UX designers. They identify users, they do their interviews, they're looking at stakeholders. But if you are a fashion designer that you don't really have employees, it's just yourself, you would analyze trends, you would look at what's sold, you would look at insights and all of that. Then you would start to synthesize all of this information from this space here. And now you're defining what are your consumers actually looking for. That is your vision boards, your fabric swatches, prints, trimming, and all of that you're familiar with. What I would do is get a little book, and I would start to add things for each maybe fall, winter 23, spring, summer 2023. And what designers are now doing, there's a lot of season list collections. So the reason why season list collections work, one, as a sustainable fashion designer, you want to make it so you're not overproducing. You're not doing, your large batches. And then, so these are things that you would think about. So how are you defining this brand? You're defining it by, for me, I am doing capsule collections. Only capsule, I will never go over 15 pieces. My aim is 10 pieces. I don't think consumers need more than that. So in this space, you're saying, okay, who are we and what exactly are we doing? You're developing, I place these here just so you can see, flat pattern cutting, 3D constructions. You're sending samples to manufacturers. This says overseas, I would say, as a sustainable fashion designer, to keep it domestic. In New York, and you already have access to that at Custom Collab. So you're great. And then delivering would be, instead of preparing deliverables to hand off to a tech team, that would be your UX designers. Here, you're gathering visuals for a physical mood board, sourcing fabrics, and then you're actually getting pieces and sending them out to your consumer. Okay, this is what I was looking for here. So fashion and textiles, again, discover, and you'll get this, but if you want to take a screenshot, discover your trend forecast, trend analysis, what will we sell, why, competitors. Your mood boards would be your define phase, developing, construction, pattern making, overseas production. Delivery would be your styling shoots, runways, and it would go to retailers. But that's not the complete process. So now we're going to go into your business model canvas. I use this, or I've used this, if you're starting out, whether you're starting out or you've actually have a brand, this is great because it allows you, and you can find this template online. So it looks like this. There's different, you see these different quadrants. So the key partners for your business. So this would be for your business or for your ideal business. And even if you haven't started your business yet, this would be great. So who are your key partners for your organization? So this would be suppliers that you need. So maybe it would be, for me, who's supplying my fabric? Either it's a Fab Scrap or it is Queen of Raw, and she has sustainable materials also, both located in New York. What key resources does the company receive from these suppliers or these partners? Fabric, equipment. Maybe you're going into Jo-Ann Fabrics because you need sewing machines. And what key activities are performed by these partners? For us, we think it's the biggest thing is your fabrics, but then you would say, so marketing, who are we going to partner with for marketing? Maybe we're partnering with a digital marketing strategist. And then you're just thinking to yourself, what are the needs of the company and what do you need in order for your organization to function? And then your key activities. So this is what activities you'll deliver to your consumers to create what's your value proposition. And then what activities set your company apart from others. So this is when you're looking at your competitors and you're saying, so you'll look at a Fenty, right? A Savage Fenty, for example. They have a subscription service. They're doing exceptionally well because of their subscription service. It allows consumers to basically save. You're saving money, and then you can go on Fenty and purchase. And that's why that's one of the value propositions that they offer. And that's a key activity of theirs. Maybe you're doing trade shows. And then consider how your company's unique differences and its revenue streams. So you should have more than one revenue stream as a fashion designer. Maybe if you are doing, you have a large studio, you're doing pieces for your collection, and maybe you're doing private label work. Or if you do natural dyeing, you're dyeing for private labels, like a Carrot Piazza. And then you're considering how your company's differences and their distribution channels and consumer relationships. So do you need to procure specific resources for your brand? And you would, right? Because this is the fashion industry. And do you need to streamline these to keep costs low? So streamlining would possibly look like, for fashion designers, not sustainable fashion designers, really, but maybe going overseas to get pieces made. And maybe if you are interested in sustainable fashion and you cannot yet afford it, that may be something that you can do, but you have custom collabs, so why would you do that, right? And then your key resources. So what specific resources or assets are necessary to deliver your value proposition, which would be your pieces and all of the other things that you're offering. And then you would also think about resources needed to maintain customer relationships. So I would say for that would be maybe your email marketing. Maybe that would be having interns respond to consumers online. So beneath your post, that would be a lot of marketing. And does your company require a lot of capital or human resources? So for a fashion brand, I would say we require both, right? But if you're starting out, you may require a lot more capital so that you can get to this human resources where you have seamstresses working for you, someone in-house doing the marketing and all of that. Your value proposition, now you're identifying. So value proposition is after you're back in this space all the way up here. After you've done all your discovery, now you've defined what are you providing to consumers, which is important. And a lot of fashion brands don't do this. So this is where you identify the core value the company provides to consumers. And what exactly is the company trying to give to customers? So you're giving them clothing and what else? So a lot of brands, that's why a lot of brands are going into the space of empathy. They're motivating them. This is why Nike is doing so well. Nike not only provides clothing, but they have an app for running. They provide a space of community. They motivate their consumers. That's the value that they're providing as well. So it's not always tangible, but it's what else are you providing the consumer in order for the consumer to thrive in your product or while using your product or service. So that can also be an app. And how do you offer something different that satisfies the demands of your customer segment? So how would you provide Kalana Barfield? And we went into that. So instead of loungewear, you would provide her with maybe I wouldn't say couture pieces, but maybe semi-formal pieces for when she's out at a brunch, or trousers that she likes to wear, or maybe shoes. And then you would go into maybe your price points, the quality of your pieces, the higher the quality, higher price points, right? And then your design and your status. How do you want consumers to feel while they're wearing your pieces? Now, customer relationships or consumer relationships. What type of relationships do you have with your customers? And how do you interact with customers? And how does that differ from segment to segment, from customer segment to segment? And if you have any questions, feel free to write them down and I'll answer them after. I just want to throw that in there so you can write your questions down and I'll definitely answer them for you. And do you communicate frequently with your consumers? This is what I would say to use an intern for. And a lot of fashion designers that have their LLC, what they can do, because at Parsons, the new school they provide fashion brands. As long as you have an LLC, you can get an intern. I had one of my students intern for me. And it wasn't because I'm faculty at Parsons, but it was just because I submitted to their careers page and you can get interns for your brand. That can actually, why am I saying this? That can actually run your Instagram, that can run your social and your marketing. And oftentimes they're master's level students that actually are majoring in marketing and they have experience, and they would get credit for it. And so your channels would be, how are you delivering your value proposition? How are you delivering these pieces? So are you going into a retailer? Are you going into Nordstrom? Are you selling it only online? Are you doing pop-up shops? Do you have a store, brick and mortar store? And this is how are you reaching your customers or your consumers? And what channels are used? And consider this, I would say, consider your supply chain. Supply, distribution, marketing, and communications channels. And are they well integrated and cost efficient or cost effective? And are they utilized effectively? So, sorry, 1 second. That is my door. Okay, it stopped. I'm sorry. And then your consumer segments. I would identify who your value proposition targets. Again, with the empathy map, once you do an empathy map, you can always change it. You can alter your empathy map and you can say, possibly you want it to be a brand that catered to women who could afford pieces that are $20 to $30, but you realize that it takes you about $100 to make a piece. So now your piece is $300. I always say times everything by 3 as a fashion designer. So now your piece is $300. So you went from saying, okay, this consumer, her yearly income or salary is about $40,000 to now saying, okay, $300 per piece. Maybe she has to make at least $100K. So you're changing your segment because they now can afford your pieces. And so who are your most important customers? So for me, my most important customers are women who are, and I do cater to men, but the bulk of my pieces, I just love women's wear, right? And so I tap into that. I do tap into men's wear, but women's wear, that's my customer. My consumer is about 28 to, I would say, 40. And not saying that women who are 23 can't wear my pieces, but I'm saying I understand that the income level as well is not the same. Where you would say a brand like Theroux, their consumer segment is not the same. Their consumer segment is not the same as, let's see, a Balenciaga, right? It's different segments. And then once you understand your segment, you'll begin to alter different pieces. Maybe you want to add more rhinestones. If maybe Gen Z is your new target audience, right? You'll say to yourself, okay, so if Gen Z is my new target audience, Gen Zers love, maybe they love this mermaid phase. Maybe they love these colors, euphoria. I love euphoria. So mentally, I am a Gen Zer when it comes to that. But that is more of like, and that's what's actually allows brands like your Balenciaga, your Gucci's to go into different segments and say, okay, we're not only going to target millennials, we're going to target Gen Zers, right? And then another thing I would say is there's a lot of brands that are actually doing this now. There's brands like the brands that would target older consumers, or I wouldn't say older, I want to age myself, but the millennials and onward, they're targeting Gen Zers. But as a fashion designer, someone in the space of business, you understand that Gen Zers, their income is lower, right? So how are you going to target them? Possibly creating a collection or a few pieces for Gen Zers. You're not saying this is a Gen Z collection, but you'll create different ways in order to target them if you want to change your target segment or your consumer segment. Now your cost structure would be identifying key costs in your company's business model. Key costs would be here, your relationships, your channels, and your business model. And then what are the major drivers of cost? So should you lower the cost of marketing? How much are you allocating to marketing? How do your key activities and key resources contribute to the cost structure? So your key activities, that's right here. How does this contribute to your cost structure? And then when you think of your resources, right? And so that's different revenue streams. And how does your cost relate to your revenue streams? So you're thinking of all of this. And lastly, your revenue streams. So you're identifying the ways that your value proposition generates money from your business. So a Fenty, they're selling pieces, but they also have a subscription service. And, other brands will have an app that you have to pay $2.99 for a month. That's part of their revenue, right? Or brands will have this one app that you get for free, but your premium version of this app is $5.99 a month. And that's how this is their revenue. And does your company have multiple methods of generating revenue? And it should, right? Maybe you're doing loungewear, streetwear, you have an embroidery machine at home, and you're using that for your brand. Now open that space up if you have the capacity to other businesses, right? So that's another revenue stream. And this is just an example of Zara. I do not shop there as it's not eco-friendly or really sustainable in general, but this is a value. Let me see if I can open this up. Okay. This is a business model canvas for Zara. And scroll down. So Zara's customer segment, or consumer segment, they target men, women, children. This is too vague. I always go into what are their ages? How do they live? What are their lifestyles? Where do they work? And then let me see if I can scroll down. Okay. Value proposition, fashionable clothing. They have accessories. You have a great e-commerce experience. And then there's a flagship store experience, and it's fast fashion. Terrible. This is not the best, but for consumers that enjoy fast fashion, maybe there's no turnaround. It's one day, they get their pieces in 2 to 3 days. That's what they're looking for, and that's the value that you're providing them. And these are different channels, revenue channels, so direct sales through their stores. They sell online, and then social media. They use social media to boost their sales. Sorry. Okay. So why do brands need a social media strategy? So fashion brands, we all know why they need a social media strategy, but why is that there has to be a plan. So outside of just using social media, it's not just about how often are we posting, but how does this actually, what's this relation to our campaign, or what's the message that we're trying to, share with our consumers. So fashion brands go hand in hand with lifestyle, or consumers' lifestyle, and they can also become a culturally driven product. So when you're just thinking of collection or pieces, when you're leveraging or using social media in order to change the culture of your organization, or you are becoming you're more conscious, or you're interacting with consumers online so that it comes off as if you are a friendlier brand, or consumers feel more comfortable with you because you're transparent, or because they feel like in the space of sustainability, this brand's actually sustainable. That will push consumers to want to buy your products even more. So when you mesh that with social media, it's an effective way for consumers to find products within a social context. So brands have actually, after the 2020, after COVID, but also all of the things that were happening in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and systemic racism, and all of that, social justice, brands shifted, right? And they used social media to do that. So it wasn't that they were changing their pieces, really. They were posting more on social media. They were interacting with consumers in different communities. And then that allowed them to eventually change their brand or the products that they provide. So brand awareness, and all brands want to make sure that there is brand awareness. And how do you make consumers aware, get them to become more aware of your product or services? There's different parts of marketing, but I would say social media is one. So as a fashion brand, I think it's most important to ask, how can we get our customers to know, like, and trust? Trust is really big. Trust us so we can build brand loyalty. And if you're targeting millennials and Gen Zers, trust is really important. So I would say maybe there's some millennials that trust really is not a big thing for them. But Gen Zers, absolutely, if they don't trust the brand, they're not purchasing from there. So building brand awareness is a really important first step to that process, right? So maybe you're going to look into working with a brand strategist, right? Or you want to, if it's just you as a fashion brand or fashion designer, you're going on social media and finding brand strategists and following them, right? So how are you attracting consumers? So according to the Influencer Marketing Hub, each year they do a benchmark report. As many as 69 of marketers use social media to create brand awareness. And that's the easiest thing. It's free, right? Unless you're paying to promote, or you have your store linked to Instagram, and 52% use it to increase web traffic. And I do it at work. So at work, I'm not only the director of sustainability, but also the marketing lead for Ovation In-Store. So I do all of the LinkedIn posts. I'm creating captions all day, looking at images, and I'm working with our VP of creative. And how do we increase our traffic, our website traffic? LinkedIn. We don't use Instagram. We plan to this year, but as a fashion brand, I would say Instagram is so easy, and TikTok, right? You sit at home, you're doing your TikTok and your reels and all that stuff. And that will increase the web traffic. So how does that work on LinkedIn? You'll post something, you probably will have a link to your website, and they just click on your website. They just want to see more. So instead of seeing still images, maybe you're doing a video of an image, right? So if you are familiar with how to do that, I would do that. We do that with Ovation In-Store. So consumers, the fact is consumers can't really buy from you if they aren't aware of your product you're offering, right? And maybe they think that you only have women's wear to offer, but you have kids wear, you have shoes, and you have accessories. So that's why you're using social media, and that's why they need to become conscious, or be conscious of what the brand is actually offering. Influencer support. So this was really big for fashion designers, right? Getting influencers to wear your pieces. And if you're familiar with marketing, I would say to just understand the different levels of influencers. Maybe a micro influencer or is about 10,000 followers. And then you're going up in numbers to mega, and that's over 1 million. So one of the most effective ways for brands to get social media influencer support is through paid partnerships, right? But If you are conscious of an influencer, you see a micro influencer as a fashion designer, you would go on the Instagram. I wouldn't DM them. I would send them an email. They always have an email on their page. And for micro influencers, you'd probably offer them pieces for their marketing to help you, gain some leverage in the industry and some visibility. So the more strategic your brand is about increasing visibility through influencers or through other social media channels, the more it can score strategic partnerships that work to increase traffic, revenue, and reoccurring customer base. So traffic on your website or maybe your social media pages like your Instagrams and Facebook. About 51 of UK marketers are already working with influencers. And in the US, we work with them as well. As a fashion brand, the bid for influencer support can be ignored. And also, that's why it's important to understand how to actually attract influencers, right? Drive website traffic. This is extremely important. And a lot of brands feel that just social media is important. No, your website, because that's where you make your sales. Unless they're purchasing from Instagram, but it's also going onto your website. So according to a survey, 25 or 26% of the industry professionals say social media is the most effective digital marketing channel. Marketing, right? But they're purchasing on your site. One of the most known perks of having a sound social media strategy is access to cost-effective traffic. Most of it is free. If you're using Reels, you're reaching more people than you would just a regular post. And then driving traffic, especially if you're a younger brand, can be an uphill climb through channels other than social media. For instance, if you choose to go to the SEO route, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with SEO. With content marketing, it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to see any results. So that's why it's really important to drive traffic to your website. So just brands shouldn't just rely on SEO. And it's even if you eventually do see results with the amount of traffic that's going to your website, how does that relate to your revenue? Right. So you may have 300 people going on your website every day, but how many orders are you getting? So then you have to change your marketing. You really have to go into the space of brand awareness so that consumers are now in the space of understanding your brand and what do you have to offer and why should I buy your piece as opposed to buying Ivy Park or something like that. Why am I buying your piece? And that's why this is really important so that brands understand what you offer and why should they purchase from you. So 4 core content types. And then there are 7 different types of sectors of marketing, right? But I would say for a fashion designer on social media, promote your product and offering with a direct response or a CTA, which is a call to action. So what do you want them to do? They're going on your website. Are they purchasing? Do you need more clicks? What are you telling them? So usually with social media or LinkedIn post, our call to action for Ovation in Store is check out this. Go on our website to understand how we can innovate your brand's technology, or go, that's our call to action. And then you're educating consumers. So the way that we educate consumers for visual display cases or technology, we're not only saying, okay, we just work with Target Ulta, but we're saying we worked with Tom Ford and we created the sustainable piece for Tom Ford that was made out of this material. We added this LED strip that was made using recycled acrylic, like all of that. We're educating consumers. We're not giving them too much or saying like, I went directly to this supplier and the supplier helped me achieve this goal. You're not saying that because your competitors will now go to that supplier, but you're just educating them. And you want to do that through social media. You want to inspire. You want to inspire consumers in order to connect with them. So the way that you would probably inspire your 5-year-old niece and the way that you would motivate her is the way that you are applying that empathy to inspire your consumers. So you're having this friendly relationship with consumers. I think the days of, the hair flip and just being extra like, I'm special, don't talk to me, you can't sit with me, that kind of brand, those days are over. Even a Balenciaga, they're becoming more empathic, either through their social impact work or their DEI work. They're more empathic, they're more inclusive, and that's how they're inspiring their consumers. Lastly, you want to entertain them. And how do you do that? I would say TikTok, Reels, Instagram. You want to entertain. You don't want to seem as if, especially if you're a new brand, you don't want to come off as if you're just here to sell this product and nothing's fun. So for example, Ovation In-Store, I work with my CEO, and he does the marketing too. So we do it together. And he always has these really catchy openings for our captions. And sometimes it's like, wow, but it's entertaining. It makes you laugh. And when he sends it to us, I'm always laughing. So I'll create something that's super fun, creative, professional. And then he'll do this one sentence and we're like, wow, this is amazing, which is also why you should have a team of individuals that they're not all one-sided, they're multidimensional, because they'll entertain your consumers, and that's how consumers would want to actually buy your products. That's how they'll frequent your page, and you'll get a lot more traffic if you're entertaining them. So the tactics for the web or for an organization or a fashion brand, I would say to use your website, to use SEO, use your keywords like your sustainable fashion, eco-friendly, social impact. All of these are also using hashtags, and Instagram and Facebook. You can say we don't use Facebook, but guess what? Facebook owns Instagram. So you're using both, right? So leverage both. If you use Instagram, have a Facebook page. If you'd like to use Twitter, I don't really use Twitter. I won't say that I do, but there are fashion brands that use Twitter. So there's Jacquemus that uses Twitter. And then there's brands that use Pinterest that actually, if you can get an intern to create mood boards with your pieces. So maybe like you made a trouser set with a top, have an intern come in and throw some nice heels with that. And then have an intern come in and throw a blazer. Maybe it's a blazer from a vintage shop, or it's another brand, or it's a type of blazer. And then TikTok, of course, if you are sewing from home or if you have a studio, that entire process can go on your TikTok. YouTube, a lot of brands are not using this, but a lot of influencers started at YouTube. They started at YouTube, they became this big influencer on YouTube, then they took it to Instagram, and then by that time, they were already well known. In YouTube, you would use it for the same thing, but it's longer videos than TikTok, right? So maybe you're doing a tutorial, or you're doing a get ready with me that is extra long. Maybe you're on a trip and you made 10 different pieces for your trip for yourself, and you want to have that on YouTube. And in real life events, maybe you're going to events with your pieces. Maybe this would be a pop-up shop. Emails, email strategy, I would say to use Flowdesk, or some people still use MailChimp. And then SMS texting. I don't like to receive text, but when it comes from Savage Fenty, I don't know why I get excited. I get excited, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have more credit. Let me go buy something. Anyone else, even friends, my phone is always on do not disturb. Seeding and influencer marketing, that's another tactic to use. Cross promotion would be promoting on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, so different mediums. Brand partnerships, of course. And a brand partnership could look like maybe you're a small brand and you're going to partner with another small brand. Or maybe you are a small brand and you received a grant from like a Cartier, and then you want to partner with them on a fashion show, right? Expanded distribution channels, maybe going from just the e-commerce to seeing if you can get into a retailer like a Nordstrom or Bloomies. And then earn media and publicity. You're going into PR. And some PR, depending on how awesome your brand is, which I'm sure you all have awesome brands or awesome ideas, you can get PR for free, right? Just have to get out there. Lastly, paid media. And this is just a link that I don't think we have time because I want to go into this trends. So we do have the value chain analysis. I think I'll save this for next week so we can go into this and different points of leverage or finding leverage within your organization. But I'll use the last few minutes, this is all value chain, to go into this future edit. Why is consumer insights important? And I actually did this webinar this week, and see if it's here. Okay, so I am a member of Trendalytics, and I think this is really good for fashion brands. And so with Trendalytics, they go into your Google Analytics, they actually do surveys, they do focus groups, and they see what's trending with designers. So this is what driving trends. And I would say if you're not part of Trendalytics, just definitely to do that. These are trends before and after. You'll see this trends heavily pushed for consumers from key sources, key events, analog sources. This is what was trending before. Now we went from Vogue, Twitter, and New York Fashion Week to now Google Analytics, Instagram has analytics, and TikTok has analytics. I'll just go into what's trending for this year. These were 2022. Social media trends. I'll share this with you all too. I think what I found most interesting, okay, this here. So this is where we go into the escapism, fantasy, nostalgia. That is for 2023, fall, winter, even with the colors. They're using trends and consumer insights to devise all of this, to basically create this entire deck. This year, we're going into the Victorian era, sci-fi movies. So while you're designing, while you're at custom collab and you go home and you're thinking of things, think of escapism, fantasy, and nostalgia. And then also think of your supply chain, which we'll go into next week. And so you're looking at trends, you're looking at new greenwashing regulations, labor transparency, growth of resale and rental. Maybe you want to go into that space. Maybe you want to go into the space of being a sustainable fashion designer who has capsule collections, and after maybe the fifth wear, the consumer can mail it back to your studio, and then you give them 50% off, and then you resell that piece. That's something that I want to do, right? We can all do it. So this is what I'm sharing. And because you see why this number, there's growth here in the resale rental space. And then there's a new crafts movement for 2023, 24. A lot of consumers want brands that are focusing on craftsmanship, timeless basics or timeless pieces, and utility and multi-use. So if you're creating a collection for this year or next, I would think of utility. I would think of a lot of pockets. The pockets here. And again, I'm going to share this deck with you so that you just can see what's trending. And these are the 7 aesthetics for the year. So aesthetics are leather jackets, denim maxi skirts, the embellishments here, the bow, all of the pearls and all of that stuff that's trending for this year. And this is the euphoria. I love it. And it's like a mixture of 2000 and what we thought the 2K would be, Y2K would be, was this space, and we're getting the little fur. And all of this is just trends that they pulled from. And how are they pulling these trends? They're going on Google Analytics to see what are people typing in. They're going on Bing, they're going on different search engines to see what our consumers in the US or globally are looking for. And this is what they're looking for. They're looking for these colors and these pieces. Elevated indie, again, the acid wash is really big, especially in gray. These are the colors that maybe you want to include in your fall, winter. So all of these I will I'll send this over, but why is consumer insights? I would say this is the most important thing that you should be conscious of before you start designing your collection. You should always know what colors are trending, right? You should see embellished bow, 230% increase on search engines. So everyone they want to see this here. So whether you're putting this bow on a skirt or you're putting this bow on the top, consumers are looking for this. And you see it here. It's more of a flower that you see this here. This kind of looks like a heart. It's like you're adding different pieces to your clothing. So it's just not a lapel now. Then this is the mermaid era. And I love mermaids, even though I cannot swim. And these are different colors that are trending. So I'll share this with you all so that you can see or get an idea, or maybe you had an idea for like, we're in that discover phase of design thinking, and you needed to see this so that you can say you're confirming colors, or you're saying, no, we're going to add some lyocell that's really thin and it's going to be this color. We're going to add utility pockets like Balmain did. This one here. This is my favorite right here. I just love it. Look at the pockets, the texture. They've included so many different trends here. This is like a blazer jacket, but they made it into a top. It's just beautiful. And their entire collection was all about utility. So there's pockets here and pockets here. I will end with that, but I'm open for questions, and I will make sure I share this with you. Prior to ending, I would like for you all to do a business model canvas for your current company. So if you own a brand, a fashion brand now, or one that you plan to actually start, create a business model canvas and send it to me. I will share my email. You see, okay, let me just go into this deck. It's on the last page. So this is my email. It's ncolas@newschool.edu. I do see some questions. Okay, that's old. Sorry. So send me your business model canvas. I will send you I'll send it to you, Ganeda, and then I will go into, I'll send you the business model canvas and the trend forecasting report.
Okay.
Complete as much as you can. So I'm open for questions. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you so much. It was amazing information.
Thank you so much.
I
have a question. Well, I have a lot to say. My name is Janice. I graduated from Custom Collaborative in 2018. And since then, after Custom Collaborative, I attended the Lillian Project, which is a business incubator. And following that, I worked a full-time job, and then I got back into designing. Custom Collaborative really inspired me to become a designer because I became knowledgeable about the industry. I was always a creative, but they kind of sustained the idea that I wanted to be a designer. And so a lot of the things that you said resonated with me, and I will say that this is like the best presentation that I've encountered, and I've been in so many different workshops, seminars, but the way you explained it made it feel really achievable. Like I was writing down so many different things because you kind of touched a lot that I've been experiencing, and then as well as working on moving forward. And so the first thing you said was like empathy thinking, and I'm like a super big empath, and like, you know, just the direction of like the steps that you did was like so on point. Like I was like, oh my God. And the fact that you have 4 Ds and the name of my brand is 4 Cs, and my 4 Cs are create, clean, clear, conscious. So it was just like, oh my God, I can resonate. And so, you know, you made it seem like, okay, this is the way you broke it down was like, okay, this is possible. And so I'm at the stage now where everything that you were stating, I'm really implementing that. And I've done a lot of things that you stated on your list. And now it's more so like structuring it. And so like you provided that for me today. So I'm like super, super grateful. And I'll definitely be sending you my business model. I think that's what you stated. Just get your input and feedback, because like, you know, you can go on this journey as much as you can with your ideas. And so it's so much to learn in this industry. But not giving up. And I'm super glad I joined this call because I had a meeting later with Janita, but I was like, let me jump on the workshop and see, like, just be open-minded about it. And I'm like so happy I came. So just thank you. I just don't want to take up too much time. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Denise. And in case people are kind of still thinking about their questions, I have a couple, so we can get maybe a few minutes of conversation going if people can stay on for a few minutes. But as Denise said, we do have a meeting later on. However, there are a couple things that you mentioned or that were in your presentation that I wanted to go a little bit deeper in with, particularly with SEO and UX. So you mentioned those terms, and I wondered if you can maybe take a couple minutes to explain what either are, what both are, and also how does design thinking go into, like, if you have a website, if you have your Instagram, how does that go into that UX, and then also SEO, how does that all apply?
Okay, I would definitely say, for me, I think UX is more important. SEO is a search engine optimization. And so that's plugging in different words, maybe on your website or throughout your website, that will optimize the amount of traffic that you receive. And even if you're working with someone who's doing the coding, you're including that. But if you have a Squarespace or possibly, I'm not sure, Wix, I haven't used, in Shopify. I'm sure on Shopify, you can plug in different terms for consumers when they're on your website, or if they're searching on a Google, it'll be easier for them to actually, for your website to pop up, and that will drive traffic to your site. And so for UX design, I think that's really, really big. And I think UX design specifically with your website, I would create, let me share my screen. Can I share my screen? Am I sharing my screen? No, I'm not. I don't see that.
You're not actively, but you can.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, I just wanted to go into our location. I was actually looking on your site so I can send to some students for job openings. So search UX design is also, when you think as a designer and you're thinking of creating a website, it's more of like, how do you want users to perceive your brand, right? So for us, we thought a video would be best. We didn't think the writing would be best, one, because we're a retail display organization. This is away from Jacques Louis, my current brand, but this is something that, I think this is larger, so I think this is easier. But these are the top brands that we created maybe in 2022, right? And then we said, we build brands. That's all we needed to show. And then we wanted to make sure that while consumers are scrolling on our website, I helped to create the site. I made sure that we had a sticky here. That's also a part of UX design. As you're scrolling, there's still a menu here for you to actually use, right? And then what are the things that we do? A little brief summary of what we do. We do sustainable. We have sustainable pieces. We have merchandising programs. We do this here, cutting edge technology, and then that's all you needed. Our expertise now, it's more of like saying, okay, what does a consumer want to see on my website? As a consumer, I don't want to see a summary first, right? I want to see a picture. So what do you have? Like, what are some pieces that you have? Maybe it's your spring, summer 23, have that picture there. If it's a video, you created a reel, or if it's a still video, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. How is that attracting the consumers? What does the consumer want to see next? Maybe your consumer wants to see spring, summer, or SS23. They want to see that because you just dropped the collection. So right here where you would have your video, you would have a little button, which would be spring, summer 23, or enter into our collection of, and then there's different touch points on websites that you would want. So you definitely want your call to action, or maybe there's beneath here, I made sure I included this. So this for us, the consumers, once they get to the bottom of the page, they may not want to use this, right? Because they may not see, okay, our expertise. What is our expertise? Retail displays, millwork, and technology. Our work, they cannot see that there. Our clients, and then our case studies is here. So UX design is user experience design. So for fashion designers, we're using UX, especially when it comes to web and to tech. I would say that we're using UX design. And that is, you're thinking, you're getting into the head of the consumer. And I always say psychographics. Graphics is what is your consumer thinking before and after, before they use your product, and what are they saying? So what are they thinking? I am looking for a sustainable fashion brand that I can find at least 3 pieces. Maybe I can't afford these pieces, so I'm looking for a brand that actually has a subscription service. So every time I get paid, I can plop some money into this bank on this website, and then eventually I could afford this piece. That's what I'm looking for as a consumer. That's a psychographic. What am I saying? This is a pain point for me. So that will tell you, okay, this is how I should now design my site, right? And then design the services that I offer my consumer. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right, like you said at the very beginning, design thinking embodies everything that you can do, not just how do you design your clothes, but again, how do you design the experience people have when they go to your Instagram, where they go to your Facebook, where they go to your website. So it was great for you to, I think it was great for people to hear like how that can actually affect how people are associating with you or connecting with you, even on your own website.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great.
Did you touch on empathy design? Because I had that on my list of questions as well.
Okay, I'll show you an empathy map. An empathy map would look something like, let's see if I can open this one. So it's more of like, what's your consumer saying? What do they think? What do they do? What are they doing? And how does that make them feel? And there should be some at the bottom. Maybe this is a better one. Okay, perfect. So usually it has your pain and gains at the bottom. So what are their current pains prior to using your product or service? And what are they gaining by using your product or service? That makes them happy, sad faces for the pains. How are they thinking and how do they feel? Say and do is more of their psychographic. So what are they saying and what do they need? Let me see if there's a completed one here. Okay, yep. So one would be, who are we empathizing with? Our consumers, what type of consumer? And then your goal. What do we want them to do? Do we want them to purchase our pieces from our site? Do we want them to interact with us more on social media? Do we want them to actually help us with brand awareness? So spread the word to other consumers. And what do they see currently? And what do they say? So maybe they're seeing with the current brand like Balenciaga, what is this brand giving them? And what is it missing? And what are they saying about this brand or what's missing? And then what do they do? So maybe they'll go on your website, they'll look around, they'll purchase a piece, or they will be one of those consumers that will not yet purchase, but they'll go and ask questions on your site. Maybe they'll ask, they're always in your comments. And then what do they hear? So what are they hearing? Maybe it's consumer insights. What are they hearing about sustainability, about trends? What are they hearing about luxury brands in the space and their pains and gains from using your product? So what other thoughts and feelings might motivate their behavior? Their behavior should be to purchase your pieces. So not thinking of consumerism, but what will motivate them? And by knowing their pains with a product or service that they're not receiving, they are gaining something from using your product or service. So I can save this and share with you also, empathy map. Okay. Does that answer your question?
That that actually reminds me, we in our the current cohort, we were talking about customer personas, kind of from the marketing perspective and trying to get into the heart of who your customer is. And I shared the customer persona that Hermes shared on their site. I can send a link to that for everybody too, so that you can see. Or actually, I can share my screen. If you can, yeah, okay. I actually was looking at it before, so so basically, you know, they're trying to reach like social media influencers, like you were talking about, Naika, right? So a 24-year-old Gen Z social media influencer. She's single, lives in London. She's optimistic, what her goals are. She wants to own a business someday. She wants to travel to Australia. She's frustrated because she's not being able to post on social media, or you know, she's a little flaky, right? She's always trying to, you know, dropping engagements with people. But she's looking to like connect with larger brands, more luxury brands. And so getting into the minds of who your customer is so important. It's going to help you build out your brands as and as you develop along with your customer. Like also Naika mentioned before, as they develop, as they grow, your brand will start to shift along with them. So it's very important for you all to take the moment to just really think about who your customers are and who you're designing for.
And I would say, in terms of empathy, there are consumers that maybe are not your consumer, right? So, and it's maybe in line with who you are. So my consumer would be a little bit more spirit driven, definitely someone who's interested in the 3 parts or 4 parts of sustainability, which is people, planet, profit, and culture, or economic development and culture. And then I would say my consumer is someone that wants to adopt lifestyle of health and sustainability. My consumer is not someone who's a pretty girl 24/7, does not care about the planet, uses plastic bottles all the time. But she is someone that I would want to convert. So she's not my direct consumer. She's someone that, yes, she can still buy my products. I want her to become my consumer. So maybe I'm going into the space of marketing for that consumer as well. But that's not where we're going to spend $25,000, right? And you do that by looking at different user personas, where you had that little map that says her motivation level is really high. She's inspired by this. This is really low. She doesn't exercise. So a Nike would say, I want to convert them. This is a different type of marketing campaign we'll do for those types of consumers.
Great. Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, so Naika will be back next week. And make sure that you take the time to actually work on that business diagram that she's going to send you. I'm going to send you. She's going to send it to me. I'll send it to you. And then we will be back here again at 11 a.m. next week. I am spacing on what next week's topic is. But
so
go ahead.
Next week is on sustainable manufacturing production and evaluating your supply chain. So then we'll start with the value chain analysis.
Perfect. Everybody, since you've registered for this, you should have automatically registered for the next one, but just make sure that you have it on your calendar. And then that you're checking in on the IntraSite, all of the workshops that are coming up. Thank you again, Naika. This is great. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Have a good weekend.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You can stay on and we'll talk.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.